Welcome to MANN-O-LOGUES. I'm Dr. Sundra Mann, the creator and host. MANN-O-LOGUES is where life and leadership converge. Enjoy the journey and thank you for listening to MANN-O-LOGUES. Welcome to MANN-O-LOGUES. I'm Dr. Sundra Mann, the creator and host of MANN-O-LOGUES. MANN-O-LOGUES is where life and leadership converge. We explore the pivotal moments that define us, our discoveries, our breakthroughs, and decisions that shape our leadership journey. I'm excited about my guest today. My guest today is the distinguished educational leader, consultant, and musician, Mr. Daric Jackson. Mr. Jackson has had great success in school districts in Maryland and California, serving as a principal and currently the director of instruction and intervention. Mr. Jackson has consistently demonstrated impactful leadership on behalf of students, teachers, and many communities across various school districts. Welcome to MANN-O-LOGUES, Daric Jackson.
Good morning, good morning, and good morning. I'm so excited to be here to spend some time with you today. So thank
Thank
you for the
you.
invite.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's start from the beginning. You began as a music teacher, graduating from what? Norfolk State University. Behold the green and gold. Really a shout out
Absolutely.
to all the HBCUs. And then you transitioned into educational leadership. Tell us about a pivotal moment when you realized your path was going to diverge from teaching music, and what made you answer the calling to educational leadership? Tell us your story.
Wow, that's a very good question. I would say that my calling to leadership that I didn't know at the time actually started before I even earned my degree from the distinguished Norfolk State University. It actually started back in church when I was working with my mother and father. My father was a pastor. My mother was, the missionary, and she used to help the homeless and feed everyone in the neighborhood, and used to run camps in the summer. And because I was the youngest son, I was very protective of my mother. So I used to go everywhere she went. So when she used to get on the big bus and drive around, I was there with her. And I found myself interacting with all the neighborhood kids. And then I started to play music in the church. And then I used to lead the choir, became the minister of music. So those skills were being developed then, even though I did not know it. I was just calling myself doing the work. And then when I graduated high school, I started working as a welder, but that wasn't my true calling. So I decided to go to school, and I had to figure out what I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to do something in my passion. It wasn't about the money. It was about the passion, and music was my passion. And I decided to go to North State University. I got my degree in music, and I started teaching, and that was the love of my life. Actually, I started teaching in Newport News, Virginia, at the kindergarten level, right? And that was amazing. I love those little kids.
That was
And
very
then I found myself.
brave, very brave.
Yes, yes. It is not for the faint of heart. Trust me. And when you work at the elementary level, not only do you have to teach, you also, to a certain degree, have to entertain, because when you have 6, 7, 8 year olds, they have a lot of energy, and you must have a lot of energy. So that's how I started back in 1996 teaching in Newport News, and then eventually I got married in 1998, and I actually moved, transitioned my wife from New Jersey, I'm from Virginia. So we moved to Maryland, and she wanted to get her MBA. So I was working and playing music. I was doing gigs. And then in 2000, I'm gonna make this long story short, how I transitioned into the role that I'm in now was somewhat that led this way. In 2000, we moved to California because she had a job offer with a company in tech. And I decided then it was my turn to go back to grad school because she had just finished grad school. And I ended up getting my master's out here at the great Santa Clara University, which is a great school. It's not a HBCU, but it is a excellent school. And my transition to leadership in terms of the title, because um, not all people with titles have leadership skills, right? It's more about influence and about passion than anything else. And I can share this. And if you have any administrators that will hear this show, they know that there could be teachers in their building that can have more influence than them as leaders. So it's not always about the title. So I want to be clear about that. So for me, my dream was to teach until I retire. I was planning on being a music teacher. It was not my path to become an admin, a site leader, because I enjoyed the classroom so much. I enjoyed my kids. We put on concerts, we traveled, we competed. So I was in heaven. And I was also blessed because my wife, who used to dance in college, would also support me for our after school programs. And she would come to the school and teach the kids how to dance. So when we did our holiday performance, it was not just music, it was dance, it was the whole thing. So it just so happened that it's amazing that your life can be written for you without you even knowing it. And I said that because when we moved here in 2000 and I was going to grad school and she was working full time, um, then she was pregnant with our first child and I was going to school. I was a little stressed, right? Like, okay, my wife is pregnant. I'm not working. I'm in school. I need to do something. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and find a job while I'm in school because unfortunately, back in 2001, I don't know if you remember, it was the tech bus, right? So in 2001 here in the Valley, there was this technology just burst and thousands, like 10,000 people lost their jobs, right? And unfortunately, actually, it was fortunate. It was blessed enough that my wife lost her because that forced me to go look for a job. So I actually applied for a job at a high school as a music teacher. So went to the interview. It was wonderful. They wanted me. I can tell at the interview because music was my thing, and they had kids at the interview as well. So anytime you have kids in front of me, we are going to connect. I forgot about the adults, and I was talking to the kids. So I left that day, ended up getting sick that night because I was said that I was stressed, right? My wife pregnant, she lost her job. I'm trying to get a job. So I ended up going to the hospital and came home and ended up going right back the next day. So I was in the hospital actually for 10 days. Yes. And I missed the call back.
For the
So
job? You missed the call back for the job?
I
Oh,
missed the call
goodness.
back for the job, which I didn't
Okay.
know until I got home. So while I'm in the hospital, my wife is stressed now because I'm in the hospital. She's pregnant. She ended up going into labor. The funny story. She comes to the same hospital. She's on one floor. I'm on the other floor. So I'm going to visit her. It's just so she ended up having a baby, which was great. She went home. I was still there. So when I finally get out, we checked the voicemail. Back then, we did have a voicemails, at your home phones. So let
Home
you know.
phone, they're plugged into the wall. Yes.
Yes, the plug into the wall, which a lot of people don't know what that is. And I heard that they had called off me the job, and then they called back and said they had to get a job to someone else because I didn't respond. I was like, oh, that's a downer. But actually, that was a blessing in disguise because at that same school, when I went back to class, I had a classmate. His name is John, who I love dearly. Um, he said that they had a position open for a AP. And for those who don't know what AP stand for, assistant principal. So I interviewed for that. And there were 12 people at this interview. And majority of the people were kids, the high school students. I went in and that interview, I think, was supposed to last like 35, 40 minutes. We were in there for almost 2 hours. I was talking to the kids. They were laughing. I was laughing. I just had a good time because I didn't have anything to lose, right? And
You were being your authentic self.
was just being myself. And by the time I got home, they had called me and offered me the job. So that's how I became the AP at that school. Now, and that was a wonderful experience. So that was the first 3 years when I was in California till I moved back to Maryland in 2004. And when I moved back to Maryland in 2004, I became principal of a high school in Baltimore County. And it has been on and rocking ever since.
Wow. A trip to the hospital, a new baby, a job you didn't get, and look at you now. Wow.
Get me now back in California again for my second tour. I call it the tour.
Yes.
Now I have gone from principal, well, let's say assistant principal to assistant principal to principal, and now the director of instruction, no leadership and intervention, where I support 23 schools in my school district.
So, in preparing for our conversation today, I learned a few things about you, one of which you were honored as a champion for advancing equity and justice while fostering affirming spaces for students. Who championed you when you needed it most? And how did that shape your leadership moves along the way?
Wow. There have been several people that have came in and out of my life to champion for me. Um, my whole life, if I think about it, I can go back to the coaches when I played sports in high school, um, when I was in the military, which also prepared me for leadership, right? Because that training. Um, but my parents, you know, sometimes we don't give those closest to us the credit that they deserve, right? So my parents led by example, not saying it was perfect, but it helped me. And then when I went to Norfolk State, the Dr. Hayward, I think everyone knows Dr. Hayward. He is a Q. He really became a mentor to me because I was heading down the wrong path, and he pulled me to the side and had a firm and frank talk with me. And Dr. Brown, that same week, had a talk with me as well. That's one of the great things about HBCUs. They become like family. So they mentored me throughout my college career. And then when I started working, I was actually looking for mentors, like who can guide me to teach me how to conduct myself, how to really interact with people from across the world. So I've had mentors. I want to say about four good mentors that have come in and out of my life. So I have one now, Dr. Eric Andrews, who's here. He's a retired superintendent, and it's always good just to have someone to talk to. He doesn't always give advice; he just like to listen, which is sometimes great because you need someone to be a sounding board, and just so you can vent, and then sometimes come up with your own good recommendations. You were looking for someone to give it to you. Sometimes you have the answers for yourself. Sometimes you don't. So there have been people in my life, and I would be remiss and probably would get in trouble if I did not recognize my wife. So, um, because she is way smarter than me. Listen, but she's always in my ear giving me advice on how I should maneuver.
I love that. I love that. So you had mentors sometimes not by choice, but because people saw potential in you. But then you grew to understand that you needed to also seek mentors across. And I love to hear that even at this point in your career, you still have one. I think that's fantastic. I also really enjoyed that you discussed having thought partners because it is important to have a someone to think things through with you, like you said, to give you a different perspective, to broaden your perspective is excellent. And then also family and community, right? That family and community, because they will tell you the truth and they will keep you grounded and in line, right?
And humble
Yes,
and humble. And there's this saying that everyone use as especially at job interviews. They say, "Hey, I am a lifelong learner." No, what does it really mean to be a lifelong learner? And I consider myself a lifelong learner. I know I don't know everything. I don't even claim to know 65% of the things out here in this world. And actually, I don't want to know everything. I want to surround myself with people that have answers so that I'm not stressed. So that's one of the things I learned from one of my mentors. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have the right people around you.
that's good. That's great advice. Great advice. So let's stay in this vein for just a brief moment and talk about leading through resistance. So
Mm.
while you're implementing research-based practices or intervention programs, I'm sure that you encounter some level of resistance, maybe not in your current position, but somewhere across your career, you have encountered resistance, whether it's resistance from staff, from parents. Sometimes it's resistance from students. So tell us about how resistance actually fueled your leadership to make you a better leader at some point. And how did you go from just sort of reading about it, teaching about it, to actually from listening to leading? How did you move from listening to leading through the resistance?
You are asking some great questions. I tell you, wish I'd have had this a month ago. I would have been prepping for these. But um, resistance, that's a good one because I have encountered that, and there are days even in my current position that I encounter that. Um, so unfortunately, because of I'm just going to be frank, if I can, if you don't mind. Um, Unfortunately for me, but it has worked because I keep forging ahead. Because of the color of my skin, I do face resistance sometimes. So at a couple schools where I was the only African American on site, the only African American, and when I work with some elementary schools and it's all females that don't look like me, and I'm their first administrator, or I was their first administrator of color, to take directives from someone that doesn't look like them it was challenging. I mean, I was aware of that, and I can tell by the response, right? Because it wasn't what I was asking, because what I was asking was being driven by the district. It was just the mouthpiece it was coming out of that made some of them uncomfortable. Um, but when I acknowledge it, I went straight to one-on-one and talked about, let's get past this. So let's talk about the bigger picture, which is our kids. So trying to do that type of coaching, because I like to coach, right? I'm not going to fight. I'm going to try to figure out a way for all of us to win. Because when they win, I win. And if I win, I want them to win, right? So it happens together. It's not one person win and one person lose, right? Because if one person lose, then we all lose, right? Um, So that resistance, but that's something I've dealt with my entire life. And this, I didn't share this piece, but when I graduated high school and I started working as a welder, I was a welder before I went to college. My supervisor, him and I used to butt heads because of his comments. He used to use the N word and things like that. And I was 20 years old. When I was 20 years old, my response was a completely different than it is today. I thank God that I'm more refined, and He kept His hands on me because I thought I was going to put hands on others, lay hands and pray. Um, so I was like, okay, so that forced me to leave that job and try something different, right? So resistance either can break you down or it can cause you to work harder. So I've always had to prove myself, and which is fine because really, when you talk about proving yourself, you just do the work, and that's what I was doing.
Let the
Those
work speak for itself. Yes.
the work speak for itself
Uh-huh.
because you can, if someone was to put the work down on paper and not put a name to it, they was like, oh, this is good work. And then they see my face pop up. I remember this is a funny story. Well, it may not be funny to you, but it's funny to me. Back in 2003, I was an AP of a high school. I'm going to go ahead and say the high school, Lincoln High School out here in California. And I was the only African American administrator in the whole school district. So I had to call a parent up because the kid was doing something they shouldn't have been. I don't know exactly what the kid was doing, but I asked the parent to come up to the school to meet so we can talk about it. And it was after the bell rung at the high school. So kids are leaving campus, going to the bus, walking home, and I'm out front helping that direct traffic. You know how we do as administrators at the bell. I have on a shirt and tie, a suit because I love to wear suits. And some parents walk up because parents are all over. So parents walk up and just assumed that I was the custodian with a shirt and tie on. I said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where Mr. Jackson's office is? I have a meeting with him." I said, "Sure, you go in the building, go down the hall, and go to the front office." And then, but the way they asked me, it was condescending, right? I was like, "Wow, that's interesting." Uh, and so after I told them where he was, I said, "Is there anything that I can help you with?" "Oh, no, like, no, 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 we don't need to talk to you. We need to talk." I said, "Okay." Send them in there. I waited about 10 minutes, kept doing my work. I walked into the office. I said, "Are you all still waiting for Mr. Jackson? You get a chance to see him yet?" And he said, "No, we wait for him." I said, "His office right here. I go knock on the door." So I go to my own office door. I knock on it. I open the door. I go in. I stay another 5 minutes. I come out. I said he said he will that you all can come in now. He'll see you. They walk in. I walk in behind them, and I sit behind the desk. And now, how can I help you? Yeah, that was one time I did that. I probably, saying it out loud, maybe I should not have done it, but I did it because I was like, eh,
I
in
get it. I get it. I've had a similar situation, so I get
yeah.
it.
So hopefully someone will laugh at this story. Don't get upset with me, but I just wanted to do it. I had to do it once in my career, so I did it that day.
Listen, the theme of monologues is life and leadership. Like the two are intertwined. You cannot disconnect real life from leadership. And
That's
these
right.
are the moments, right? These are the moments that really cause you to stop and think about who you are and who you want to be.
Right. And listen, and there's nothing wrong with being able to laugh at work either. Now, even
Yes.
though I laugh at this, think of the impact. I used that word a couple of times today. The
Yes.
impact it had on those parents.
Yes.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
right? So I gave them a lesson without even saying anything.
Yes.
Just going through that motion of 10 minutes waiting in the office, 5 minutes again waiting, a total of waiting about 15, 20 minutes,
Yes.
taught them a life lesson. Yeah.
And I hope that when they repeated the story to someone, because you know they did, I hope that
Right.
that person laughed.
I hope so too. Or I hope they were so embarrassed it'll change the way they respond.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, yes. But I don't think much have changed in certain states when it comes to people of color. I'm trying to be political, especially African Americans, because we still have colleagues that view us differently. And I would even venture out to say, I don't know now, but even with my time in Montgomery County, in Baltimore City and in Baltimore County and in Howard County and here in California, some of the individuals I run into still trying to wrap their head around how to interact with people of color. That's why it's still an issue today. Let's just be honest. It's an issue for this world. And there are those still trying to hold on to what they think is, you know what? I'm not going to go down that road. Let's just
Listen, the bottom line is this. As the nation celebrates its 250th birthday this year, we are still facing some of the same issues that we did 250 years ago. And I'll
yes,
just leave it there. I'll leave
yes,
it there.
yes, yes,
So, when you're balancing the pressure, the responsibility of making progress, right? Because at the end of the day, in a school district, leadership in a school district is about results. And so you're managing the pressure to of the results, but you're also trying to make sure that you stay focused on the main thing, which is the transformation of students' lives. Things that you can't see on a spreadsheet, things that you can't see in a graphic. How are you balancing that? And most importantly, how are you making sure that that's aligned with your core values and back to, you know, the honesty, integrity, empowerment, and service. So you have these measurable results that everybody's looking at, but you also have these students in front of you, and this is real life for them.
right. So for us, it's about small steps, right? So if a student could make 1 or 2% gain, that's growth, right? So that's the approach I take, right? If a kid is not able to solve 6 problems today, but a week from now or 2 weeks from now can solve 6 problems, I'm being real. I'm just taking minor. That's progress, right? If it's 20 questions on an exam and the first day student was able to only answer two, and by the end of the quarter they can answer 10, that's progress, right? So that's how we stay focused, right? So yes, everyone wants the high test scores, the state assessments. No, but we look at students, right? Like how are they making growth and how are they learning? So no, I no longer get caught up in trying to get 95% of the students to pass the English language arts exam. Of course, it would be great, right? Because the community evaluates you on those type of scores. But when you talk about the whole child, their emotional state, their physical state, are they able to collaborate with each other? Are they critical thinkers? Right? Different types of skills that you won't see on paper. So we focus on that as well. And that's a part of the program, the expanded learning opportunity program, where we teach them criticals, how to be critical thinkers, how to collaborate, how to engage. and even how to have discourse, right? How do you disagree and be respectful at the same time? So,
Those are wonderful transferable life skills that can take you across any industry, any field. But if you cannot think critically, if you cannot communicate well, and if you can't navigate structure and policy and systems when sometimes they weren't designed to support you, then you're going to be less likely to be successful. So excellent, excellent work that you're doing in your role and that your school district is doing. So I love that. I love that. So we've been talking a lot about, we've used the word impact several times. So thinking about that multiplier effect. So in the role that you're in right now as a district leader, working across not only your 23 schools that you're assigned, but just the impact across the entire school district. You develop principals, you develop teachers who all develop students. What was the mind shift that you had to make to go from being the person doing the work to being the person who develops others to do the work?
one of the traits that I really had to learn was to let go. So it's tied to that empowering others. Now, I'm I think I do a good job at that when I walk to a site and work with a leader or when I'm coaching someone. But when I have to hand over a project that I started, sometimes I want to just keep my hands around it. But I had to, you have to learn how to let people take over different projects and put their own twist to it, right? So being able to let go, being able to still be involved to coach. Um, also helping people to collaborate, understanding the value. I know I keep going back to this collaboration, understand the importance of that, um, and being a good listener, right? Because sometimes they can say, "Hey, you were doing this project, but it's a couple of things that could have been done better." Not to take it personal. It's not personal for me. It belongs to the district. But anyway, yeah. So just being open-minded, um, being able to engage with all stakeholders is important. Yes.
I like that. I like you said learn to let go. I think more leaders need to learn to let go because how can you truly build the capacity of someone else if you always have your hands on it, right? They
Right.
need opportunity to bring their own perspective, their own skills and experiences to it. And also that trust building that happens when you're learning to let go, right? I think about the difference between mentor and coaching, right? So we need mentors and coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Mentors typically start out by giving us direct guidance, but
Mm-hmm.
when you transition into coaching, coaches are there to ask questions, right? Mentors
Right.
usually give you instruction, but coaches ask questions that are stretching your thinking, stretching
Right.
practices and all the things and really kind of shaping you. So I heard a lot of that as well. Yeah, yeah,
Dr. Mann, if I can also
yeah.
add, if there are any new leaders listening, when it comes to leading, and you just said mentoring, coaching, and leaders are supposed to be coaches. Um, when I said learning how to let go, some new leaders sometimes become micromanagers, and that's not good, right? So allow staff to have some autonomy, right? You can provide structure for them, but allow them to have some autonomy so they take ownership of the work. And even if they make mistakes, you can coach up without micromanaging. I think micromanaging is probably the number one thing that drives staff away, um, because leaders feel that they have to own everything and have to manage every minute, every second of the day. And you actually don't have to. You have professionals that you've hired to,
it can be your AP, it can be the principals, the teachers to do the work, allow them to do the work, guide them, but allow them, but do not be a micromanager. And in this day and time, um, people don't work well under that. So this is not the army. This is education. You micromanage in the military to a certain degree, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that is pretty much true in other industries outside of education as well. No one likes someone hovering over them,
No.
right? Looking at every single thing that they do, because with that, you feel like your ability to lead is being questioned. It messes
Mhm.
with your confidence. And then also it demonstrates a lack of trust, right? So
Right.
I'm giving you this, but then I'm not trusting that you can accomplish it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about the difference between a manager who trains versus being a transformational leader. What are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about that? A manager who trains versus being a transformational leader.
Yes, I do have some thoughts on that. Thank you for the question. Um, a manager who trains, I use the analogy of a boxer who trains and trains behind closed doors. And you never see how that boxer performs until they make it to the main stage. And that's transformational when they're in the ring. It's just like educators. Leaders can train by sending staff to PD, professional development, doing coaching, and you're training to hit the ground running. The same thing, I would say the same thing as teachers when they go through their teaching program. I know it has changed since I went through 30 some years ago. Now, at least in California, it's real intense. There's a lot of training where not only do you have to do an internship for 6 weeks, you have to do it for 12 weeks now. And that's training and training. You build up your skills so you can transform the classroom when you take it over. And leaders do the same thing. You can train, you build up the skills, your toolbox. I love using the word toolbox because every time I go somewhere, I try to learn something and I put it in my toolbox to figure out when I'm gonna use it. But putting all these tools in, and then when it's time to implement a program or try to change the system, woo, and that's a big word, change the system. Um, then that's when you begin to transform. But you have to have the skills in order to transform. You don't walk into a place and things by osmosis, things are going to change because you wish they would change. You actually have to have a skill set to make it happen.
I like that. And you need both, right? So
Yes.
you need skills training and development, but then you also need to zoom out and see the bigger picture of how that skill is great, but then you have to stack those skills in order
Hmm.
to truly move to transformation, right?
Right.
To move an organization, to move a department, to move a division, to move sometimes people. You keep be great at you could be great at whatever it is, but can you turn it into lifelong change or a change or a big change? Maybe not lifelong, but maybe a big change. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. So, as someone who has been recognized for your visionary leadership, where do you see education in the next 5 to 10 years? What keeps you hopeful and what potentially kind of makes you pause?
But what keeps me hopeful are the kids that I interact with. The population of students that I currently deal with are so bright. I mean, wow, the totally amazing because kids are growing up in a time that I didn't, of course, I didn't grow up in with technology. Technology has advanced our students to a different level where teachers have to catch up, right? So there's pros and cons to technology. They're good and bad. But what keeps me hopeful are the kids that are in there that I interact with. They are so resilient. They're so bright, and they are a sponge. So whatever you give them, they're gonna just soak it up. So I'm I am hopeful for tomorrow, and I tell kids all the time when I do interact with them, the opportunities that I do interact with them. I really, and I'm intentional when I talk to them. I say, hey, I need you to change tomorrow. I need you to change. I'm depending on you. I make it personal. I'm depending on you to make this world better. You are going to be the group of kids that's going to make this happen. I said, the old folks like us, it's not much more we can do. But you are going to be the ones that's going to change this world. And the students I interact with here in the Valley, they are ready. I mean, they are competing. It's just not because they are academically smart, because they are off the charts. Yeah, academically, they are, as you probably know, our school district uh, is the number one in Northern California. I'm just getting a plug out there.
I love it. I love it. That's right. Celebrate your work. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, our school district is ranked number one in Northern California, but um, it's about the great teachers and the great administrators, the leader, but it's also mainly about these great kids because the parents are doing great work with them, but the kids are coming in ready to learn. And it's amazing, I had to get, when I first moved back in 2015, I had to get accustomed to that because when the bell rung, everyone was in the class ready. And in Maryland, not saying which school district, the bell rings, the kids are still in the hallway. You're trying to, you're trying to, all right, let's go. Everyone to class now. Oh no, not here. No, the bell rings. You look down the hall and it's like, where's everyone? In class, ready, sitting down, looking at the teacher like, let's go. Chop, chop. Let's go. So I'm excited about that. Um, Am I worried about what's going to happen in the future? No, not really. In terms of politics, I'm not. In terms of what's going to happen in the next 5 years, I do have some concerns when it comes down to AI. That's a whole different discussion, right? Because the AI with the jobs that are being taken away, right? That's why it's going to be important for educators to really give kids the tools they need to navigate, because the jobs of yesterday, some of those are going to be gone, right? So we have to look at how do we educate. So we actually have what we call a portrait of a learner to give them the skill set to navigate AI and all this technology that's coming our way. So
I love that. And I agree with you that we have to embrace it because it's already here.
mhm.
And we have to embrace it and use it as a tool to make us all better. So for the educators, for the students, for the parents, for the entire community, how can we use technology to enhance our lives, to make it better, and to ensure that technology doesn't overtake us? So yes, I absolutely agree with you.
When the pandemic hit, I was a fish out of water. I had to use Zoom. I'm like, what is Zoom? I think I'm an old guy, right? So I had to embrace technology to figure out how to use Zoom, how to teach lessons, how to have staff meetings, and use all the tools that came with Zoom and share screen and run reports. I mean, even though I was a fish out of water, I quickly learned it. I embrace it, and that's what's happening right now, AI. And so I use that comparison because if we would not have adapted during the pandemic, we would have been lost as a nation.
I agree with you. So you are leading solidly in the middle. So you're in between the schoolhouse and the superintendent's office. Like you are solidly in the middle. And you're also having to translate vision both ways. So you're translating vision from the superintendent's office to the school. You're translating back, communicating what the principals are trying to say to make sure that the superintendent is getting that as well. So you are supporting on both ends, and you're doing a fantastic job at it. But what does that take? What kind of characteristics of a leader does that take to be able to do that, to have that skill where you can be solidly in the middle, you can coach vision up, and you can coach vision laterally, you can coach vision back to how it all starts, the folks who have boots on the ground. What does that take in leadership to be able to do that?
Wow, another great question. You have great questions that I need about a week to try to come up with answers for. Um, it takes someone with knowing who they are, and the reason why I said that because you have to have integrity, and the reason why I bring that up because sometimes people in the middle. I'm not saying here where I am, but I've seen it where they try to play both sides of the fence, and the message gets lost, right? So to be in this position where you're in the middle, you have to be clear on what you are communicating, and it has to be consistent. So when information comes from the superintendent or the deputy superintendent who I worked directly for down to the principals, I just give the message. Here's the message. I don't put my twists on it, right? And when principals talk to their staff, I tell them don't say that this is a district initiative. Realize that this is your initiative, right? You know, in this position where I'm in the middle, I try to advise principals. I use the word advise. I can't tell them what to do because they are adults. Is to always say that this is what we are doing. You know, principals have to realize that they are politicians. And even though they don't see themselves as such, and they have to advocate for the district they work for, not make it seem like they only advocate for their school, like us against them, because that doesn't work. Because teachers judge them on that. I mean, principals, young principals don't understand that. Where teachers want to be your friend. Let's go out to happy hour. Let's talk about the superintendent or the deputy super or the directors. That doesn't work. Like let that go, because you really making yourself look bad. But really, just trying to give a clear message. My job is to give a clear message on the expectations or the initiative, what we're doing, so principals can relay that to their staff in a way where it's one voice, right? My job is to like, what could be this one voice, even though it's coming from different people, right? And that takes time. That takes a lot of communication, a lot of talking, and sometimes you have to draft that message for them, right? Some principals don't know how to relay that message. So drafting it and tell them to tweak it however they want to tweak it. Because you never know when the superintendent is going to talk to a teacher to hear what was communicated and how that was done.
One band, one sound. One band, one sound.
And sometimes the deputy superintendent or the superintendent or whoever is over me or whoever is over someone in my position have to communicate up sometimes. This is what people are saying. This is how they interpret it. Can we change our language, right? And then we bring everyone together so we can create that one voice. Like, let's all come together. Let's figure out what's the best way to relate this to not only staff, but to our parent community.
I also hear that you help to facilitate that feedback loop, right? Because it's a two-way continuous feedback loop, and you are in a wonderful position where you get to help facilitate that to ensure that all the stakeholder voices are heard in the process. And sometimes we are in meetings at, I've sat in enough district level committees and work groups that I've been in those rooms, with the superintendent, and we have these great ideas at the time, but then they don't translate well back to the actual school or the office. And so being able to help with that and see both sides of things, because you have to zoom out, right? So the ability to zoom out and see the big picture, sometimes, as you said, that message gets lost in translation.
Well, the good news for me is I didn't have to do anything because the district I work in already have these things in place where they go out to the community, they go out to the sites, and they get people voices, right? So it is built into the system that we have, right? And that's important, right? If any school district or any school site, you have these mechanisms built into the system where they're constantly getting feedback from all the stakeholders.
That's
So I don't have to.
fantastic.
All I need to do is just go with the flow, follow the plan.
I'm sure you are simplifying it. I'm sure you're doing way more than that, because you can have all the structures in place and people don't follow the system.
Hey, you
We
know
know
what?
that.
You are absolutely right, because you're right. You have to have the right people in place to push it. You're correct.
All right. So as we, so we've talked a lot about work and these long days and all this great work you're doing. What about downtime? How are you taking care of yourself? What does self-care look like for you? How are you making sure that when you are not in the office, when you are not looking at your phone or on your computer, what does it look like for you to just engage in self-care?
Well, before I answer that question, I know you said that I'm doing great work and all of these great things that happen. Let's just be honest. I want to be honest as well. Not everything has gone well. Let's so I just want for if there are any new administrators out there, realize that there are going to be some bumps in the road. Everything is not going to go perfect. It's how you rebound to those. Because I had some bumps in the road, so it hasn't always been picture perfect. So I just really want to say that it hasn't been picture perfect because what was done to me and because of some decisions I made. All right, so we learn from those, and I think that's how good leaders become great leaders, by taking the time to take a step back, reflect, learn, and then move forward. Now, to answer your question about downtime, I just started riding motorcycles a couple years ago. I know that's my downtime. I love getting on a motorcycle, um, and just riding. So I started about 3, 4 years ago now. Um, just taking some time out on the weekend. Actually, my wife told me I need to get out and ride, even though she don't like me on a motorcycle. That's a whole different story.
I was going to ask you, did she approve that? But okay. Uh-huh.
But I like riding motorcycle. I still love my music. I haven't played in almost a year, but I was playing for a church here for years. When I moved back, that kept me grounded, kept me balanced, because I was able to engage in my music. I helped with an album that I played for since I've been here. So I have some recordings under my belt. So music is my outlet, and my family is my outlet, right? So sometimes I just like to sit and just be quiet. I
Hey,
don't
that's
need.
something that comes with age, appreciating quiet. Yes.
Yes. I don't need to be out and about all the time. I don't need to move fast. Actually, I don't move fast on the weekends. So when I do have downtime, I move slow. It drives my daughter crazy. Uh, like, why you move so slow? I said, because I don't feel like rushing. I move so fast during the work week. No, no, I'm not moving fast for anyone. I don't care. But that's me, right? That's how I try to find balance or try to relax, right? Um, So yeah, and then there are and I am married, as you know. So having time with my wife to go out and do things help as well.
I love it. I love it. Your family keeps you grounded and they keep you sane.
Hey, and your family keep you honest.
Yes, they will, because they will tell you whether you ask or not. They are going to tell you the real deal. All right. So, as and you started this a little because you gave some words of wisdom. So, thinking about two types of leaders: leaders just starting out, and leaders who are well seasoned and trying to hang in there a little bit longer. What guidance would you give them to the new person and for the person who's just trying to hold on just a little while longer as they are weary in their well doing?
I think we all are weary and are well doing. So for new leaders who I like working with, right? I talk to them about balance. And when I talk about balance, especially young administrators who have young kids. So I love to focus on them, right? Because I tell them, listen, make sure that this is something that you want and need at this particular time. Because when you have young kids, 5 years old, 6 years old, they need you more than ever, right? So they need your time. So if you need to take a step back from this work because it can be so demanding, uh, you should do that. I know that sounds crazy, right? So I would advise young administrators who are married with young kids, especially at the high school level. I'm talking about at the school site. Like if you're a high school administrator, I tell you think about it, right? Wait till kids get to middle school. Because those years you can never get back. And I tell parents that as well, right? When we open up schools at the elementary level, I said, parents, I know you want to work, but these years you will never get back, and you're gonna blink and you're gonna wish you were there, right? Because your kids are not gonna forget when you're not there. So I tell young administrators that. I also tell them if they want to start off, right? Not saying everyone needs to start off at the elementary level because it's but I do direct them that way because there's not many night activities. If they choose that they want to stay in this work, ease into it. Now, some elementary people may be upset with me because I'm making a comparison between elementary, middle, and high. But there is a comparison. Let's just be honest. If you just look at the number of hours that you work, just the hours itself.
I worked my way backwards. So I started in high school, went to middle school, and then I finished in elementary school. So I agree with you that there is. And I went to elementary school because I did have I was a mother of a young child, and someone recommended me like, hey, have you thought about elementary school? Because there are less night activities, right? So there are fewer now. So we're not saying that the work is any easier, because I'm going to tell you, I can tell you, having done the whole gamut, it is not easier. But the demand of your time looks different with the different grade levels, for sure. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your life, your leadership. You have been inspiring. Your impact has been notable, and you have informed us all of how to do it, not necessarily your way, but a way that we can get it done, that we can add to our toolkit, that we can use as a model. But also, I appreciate that you have kept it real, that things are not always easy and they don't always go as planned, but just hang in there along the way. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Again, this has been MANN-O-LOGUES. I am Dr. Sundra Mann signing off. Thank you again to my guest, Daric Jackson.
Thank you.
Whether you're stepping into leadership for the first time or reimagining what it means after decades in the field, I hope you've been inspired by our conversation today. Thank you for listening to MANN-O-LOGUES.